What a difference a week makes. Hello there, it is Kristian Dyer, and this is the Red Bulls Insider Show on MSGnetworks.com. Boy, just a few days, and what a different vibe and a different feel about this New York Red Bulls team. Fresh off a weekend performance Friday night, 1-1 result against Toronto FC, the top team in the Eastern Conference, a team that right now may be playing some of the best soccer, if not the best soccer in MLS. And, 1-1 results oftentimes feel, they say, like kissing your sister. I'm going to say that this was a good, positive result for the Red Bulls, and we'll delve into that in a few moments. We're also going to have Red Bulls assistant coach Bradley Carnell on this podcast. It's going to be a great opportunity to talk with the former South African international, a player who's been with some of the biggest teams in the Bundesliga, now in his first year here as an assistant coach with the Red Bulls. Got the chance to sit down with Bradley and be able to delve into some topics. So great perspective, great thoughts, great insight coming up with Bradley Carnell. But let's go back to Friday night, Red Bull Arena, an opportunity for the Red Bulls there to take a full 3 points. And perhaps judging from the way they played, the Red Bulls should feel lucky to have actually come out of Red Bull Arena against Toronto with 1 point, with a tie. But I thought that there were some real positives there. It was a different formation for the Red Bulls. And we've spent an awful lot of time this year so far talking formation with the Red Bulls. There was the switch from a 4-2-3-1 earlier in the season, last year. It was the formation, the go-to formation that the Red Bulls have gone with in their first 2 years under head coach Jesse Marsch, that 4-2-3-1. Now a transition to the 4-2-2-2, a formation that you've heard me say it here on this Red Bulls Insider podcast before. I just don't see how the starting 11 aligns itself for that 4-2-2-2 formation. Now an entirely different formation is being rolled out. The Red Bulls having gone back to the 4-2-3-1 over the past 6 weeks, now going with a 4-4-2 that featured Felipe at the bottom of the midfield, right in front of that back four, right in front of the defensive four, and then three midfielders, Sacha Kljestan centrally, and then Alex Muyl and Mike Grella on the wings. I saw some positives from this formation. Toronto in the first half had more possession, had a little bit more of the run of play, but they just didn't have quality possessions. And I thought Felipe, although not used to being the only holding midfielder there deep in that role, I thought he covered an awful lot of space, controlled a lot of ground. I thought that the offense in the final third, bit better movement with that formation, with two forwards up top in Bradley Wright-Phillips and Frederick Gulbrandsen. They just seemed a bit more comfortable in their movement, in the flow of the final third, and went into halftime with a 1-0 lead. Now, they switched formations at halftime, and it's a decision I'm not sure I agreed with at that point in the game. Things were going along relatively well for the Red Bulls. They were creating chances. Their movement was succinct. I thought that the possession that they did have was quality possession. And then going to a 4-2-3-1, taking off Gulbrandsen at halftime. To me, it was a little bit of unnecessary tinkering from head coach Jesse Marsch. I get it. I understand why he wanted to do it, what he was trying to do by inserting Sean Davis into the game. But to me, it just didn't work. Toronto equalized, and Red Bulls had that fast and furious push the final 10 to 12 minutes. Couldn't find a game winner. All that being said, thought Sean Davis looked more like the Sean Davis from 2016. Defensively, he was good. His movement was good. His passing was solid, moved well into the attacking half. But overall, I think the formation perhaps took away a little bit of the Red Bulls' high press. It seemed like that the outside wingers were sitting back more, playing on their heels, and Bradley Wright-Phillips alone up top without Gulbrandsen was unable to press quite as effectively the Toronto back line as they did in the first half. So it was an interesting experiment. I think in particular with Tyler Adams away with the under 20 national team, perhaps it's worth considering this again, whether it's this weekend at home against the New England Revolution or at some point down the road, the 4-4-2, really more of a 4-1-3-2. Could really pay some dividends for this team. So I thought it was interesting. It was a good roll of the dice from head coach Jesse Marsch. It was a move by Marsch that really paid off with a relatively solid first half defensively. They may have given up possession, but it wasn't the quality possession. Toronto wasn't dangerous. Toronto looked lackluster. And frankly, at halftime, I was thinking the Red Bulls are coming out of this game with 3 points. So it's going to be a development worth watching down the road, what the Red Bulls do in terms of formation. And then once they get Tyler Adams back, Adams, who looked so good in the Under-20 World Cup opener, a 3-3 result against Ecuador. He controlled the midfield, looked good in terms of his creative ball work, covered an awful lot of ground. What do you do when Adams comes back? Probably revert back to the 4-2-3-1. But then by that point, maybe Fredrik Gulbrandsen opens up his MLS scoring account, the Norwegian international on loan from Red Bull Salzburg. He looked good this past match, Gulbrandsen did. I thought he was solid. I think the chance is going to come maybe this weekend at home against the Revolution on Saturday night, a match that will be here on MSG. But, you know, it's just a matter of all these pieces. How are the Red Bulls best equipped? We've also heard some talk this week and some banter this week about possible additions. Here's what I'm hearing right now, what my sources within the Red Bulls organization are telling me. 3 center backs have been targeted by sporting director Dennis Hamlet. They're really zeroing in on one of these 3 center backs. All of them are between the ages of 21 to 25. So there was a little confusion on the Metro Fanatic message boards about this, but all between the ages of 21 to 25. They're athletic. A couple of them have international pedigree. They're players who can step in right now into the starting 11 and really be able to supplant either Aaron Long, Damian Carnell, or Aurelian Collin in one of those center back positions. So it provides some much needed depth for the Red Bulls. They're also looking for attacking options as well, I'm hearing. It's in all likelihood, the first priority is going to be a player on the wings, someone who can add a little bit more offensively, a little bit more bite. Mike Grella coming back into the lineup a couple games ago is going to help with that, but it's a balance on the field right now. And for a team that's second from the bottom in the Eastern Conference in goal scoring, they have to get some sort of solutions on the wings. They need to get a player who in those 1v1 situations can take players on, get some space, get some separation, create, and then be able to put together some opportunities for a Bradley Wright-Phillips up top, for a Fredrik Gulbrandsen up top. So those are some of the things I'm hearing. They also may be looking into more of a central attacking midfielder as well, although that's very low on the totem pole. And I think the way Sasha Kljestan can play when he's freed up to move forward, I'm not sure if the Red Bulls need this at this juncture of their development. That money could probably go better elsewhere into depth in other positions. So it's going to be a real interesting few weeks now for the Red Bulls as they ride out through the summer transfer window. When that opens up, sounds like there's definitely one, in all likelihood from what I'm hearing, 2 signings, one as a center back, one more of an offensive-minded player who will be coming in, being integrated into the team. So, now let's transition into just talking about Bradley Carnell for a few moments, and then we'll hear from the Red Bulls assistant coach. Carnell is one of the most interesting guys on the Red Bulls staff. He's a player, he's someone who comes in with no playing experience in MLS, certainly no shortage of international experience with the South African national team, also at very high levels in the German Bundesliga. To me, top to bottom, the best league in all of Europe right now. But he comes in with a knowledge of the Red Bull system. He has some strong ties with the Red Bulls organization, the top members of this organization. We'll hear about that in a few moments. And also just offers perhaps a fresh set of eyes, some different insight into the team, and perhaps also has some ties in South Africa, in Germany, throughout the world that may be able to help the Red Bulls as they try to recruit players during the summer transfer window. So Bradley Carnell, Red Bulls assistant coach, coming up on the Red Bulls Insider Podcast. So Bradley, thanks for joining us. I think this may be your first interview now that you're finally settled in here a couple months and moving into your apartment and have internet access and running water and everything.
Everything. Yeah, no, it's been really good. Listen, I think the first month, just to settle in and buckle down and focus on the job at hand and to make sure getting up to speed. I mean, I came in a season that was already active, so just to make sure that, I hit the ground running. There wasn't any sort of building in phase or what have you over a pre-season or something like that. So it was very important for me, and I was fortunate enough to be working a little bit behind the scenes already, because this had been on the cards a little bit. So I've managed to pick up a couple of the games in the Champions League and what have you. So I managed to download those games and get familiar with the faces that I'm going to be arriving in to see. And after everything went positively well, and then we made the family choice to come out here. And obviously it's a big decision. If you're coming out here as a single guy and what have you, it's a great thing to come and into America first and foremost, and then into New York. I mean, many people dream about that. But again, this is not a holiday. This is a real hard job and a good opportunity for me. So to bring the family out here was a big choice, and they'll be joining me in the next couple of weeks.
How many games did you watch of Red Bulls, either from last year or Champions League or whatever, before you even come here? It sounds like it was pretty thorough. Yeah,
listen, I think from the time I got the call, then I started to become a little bit inquisitive and curious about what potentially could be coming my way. And the more I put my head into it, the more I was eager to want to come out here. So, I mean, obviously I had to get the stamp of approval from Jesse and Dennis.
And your wife too. I mean, that's the most important
one. Sure. Like I said, we were thinking about this, trying to, explore other options. Listen, South Africa is my home, and I love South Africa, and we're busy building a house and what have you. So there's a lot of things happening in South Africa for us. But I just think now where I am in my career, that I had that little appetite of something else, something more, of which either it sort of builds me in a career here, overseas, back in Germany, wherever, or it makes me on a better standing in South Africa. So going back with the knowledge that I learned, over a 5 or a 10-year period, going back and imparting that with the next generation of coaches. And that's been something that's very keen to my eye, is the development of the game, and obviously coaching at a high level. So, I mean, it seemed like a win-win situation for me, and living in a first world country where everything works, everything's planned, everything's documented, is really what inspires me to be here.
And you've had quite a journey throughout your career. I mean, we go back to your days playing university and then playing at the club level in South Africa before even going to Germany. I mean, quite a bit on and off the field when you're growing up in those formative years.
It's quite interesting because I played for Wits University, but it wasn't a university. It was a professional team. And I trained with them when I was 15. The rules stated that I could only play my first game when I turned 16. So I was training with them for a couple of months. The day I turned 16, I think 2 weeks later, I made my appearance for the professional team. So that was the youngest ever in South Africa to play professionally. So it was professional, but in those days it was kind of a semi-professional status. Right. The guys were still working, training at night and stuff like that. And quite strangely, they've actually won their first league title now. Recently.
As soon as you leave, right?
No, that's 20-something years ago. Yeah, that was a while ago.
It was a long journey.
So their sort of status in the league, they've maintained their status. They've grown to a larger identity. They've got some good corporate backing behind them, and they finally won the league. So which is great, because everyone thinks of them as a university, not really important part of football, but in terms of South African development and sporting culture, they've got a great soccer program there and develop a lot of good youngsters. And yeah, it's good that they won the league.
And soccer's been so important to the country and so much of the healing that's taken place. We think back to the 2010 World Cup, but even before that, Bradley, I mean, it really was kind of a sport that helped bring together people that were very different in the 1990s.
Yeah, listen, one of the things that brought us together was the Rugby World Cup 95, and the AFCON, where we won it at home on home ground, was 96. So we had back-to-back years of great winning a World Cup and then winning the AFCON Cup as a soccer nation. So one rugby, one soccer. But then we've just developed and gone on from there. And, obviously with the late Nelson Mandela, his inspirational story, his motivational story, that just drove the nation. And some people feel now it might be slipping again just a little bit because of his presence is not there. And obviously, he's not keeping a track on things, unfortunately. So a lot of people don't have a lot of hope. I'm still hopeful, otherwise I wouldn't be building and I wouldn't be doing my stuff there. But I think it needs a bit of time. And we know, I spoke earlier about sports and culture and politics. They're never far away from each other, especially in African countries where you see a lot of things going on behind the scenes politically and culturally as well as sportingly, and a lot of them are intertwined and affecting other groups or benefiting other groups. So there's a whole lot of discussions at the moment. But at the one point, the sport mustn't be neglected, and a lot of people are feeling that maybe the sport itself is hurting because of a lot of political motivations or tensions or changes, which might be benefiting or being the negative effect of another party. So it's a lot of background stuff, but as long as we keep plugging away and keep doing what we're doing, and I think in rugby and cricket we're still very competitive. I think soccer, we've dropped down the ranks a little bit, which is the majority sport, which is what drives the nation forward. Everyone loves soccer, but we see it in the gate intakes. Not many people are coming to the games anymore. The broadcast is really good, the production is really good, the television, it's every game's on TV, but unfortunately when you have a look on the bigger scale in terms of tradition and fan culture, it's slipping away a little bit.
Now, have Jesse and Dennis been trying to pick your brain at all about maybe getting some South African talent into this roster? We
had a little chat early on to Dennis. I mean, if I felt really there was one guy or one player that I think could help, and I mean it's been a while just getting to know the DNA of this team, so learning what makes them tick and who makes them tick, and so I think a month into it I can see more or less who those guys are and where potentially we might need to strengthen, or just depending, we might need a bit of depth here or there, which I think any squad is always looking to do. And if anything did pop up, I mean, there's a couple of good South Africans, in Brøndby or playing in France or whatever. So there are a couple of guys on the map, but again, it's not like it was. There's a squad. We called it the Sassel Super Squad of like the year 2000. That was the year, the under-23 team made the Olympics, and if you went through that team and who played in Europe and who had careers and what have you, you're looking at a Stephen Pienaar who was at Everton, Benny McCarthy who won the Champions League, you have a Delron Buckley who played for Dortmund, there's a bunch of guys, George Kamantarakis played for Basel, Matthew Booth played in Russia. There's a whole bunch of guys that were established and had careers. Now we have a couple of guys overseas, but they're bench warmers or getting little cameo runs here or there. They're not really guys dominating their positions at their clubs, and that's one of the things that South Africa has suffered in terms of their national teams. We're at the under-20 World Cup now, which is a good success for us in terms of our development, so we can see the tide turning a little bit, but hopefully that bunch kicks on now and can get overseas contracts. But I spoke about it, the league is quite lucrative in South Africa, so the hunger remains. I want to play at home in front of my fans or my family or whatever. It's easy, it's too comfortable. So I always believe you have to go out of your comfort zone to adapt into a new surrounding for you to get better. So I think that's important for youngsters, and they don't really see that.
And in the 20 plus years that this franchise has been around, there's been two South African players, at least I can think of, who played here. Sean Bartlett, who you told me a few moments ago is a friend of yours.
Yeah, sure.
And then we had Danley Borman, who was here during the Red Bulls era, who was an outside back, also played some outside midfield for Hans Bakke's team. Okay. You know Sean Bartlett quite well. Dr. Khumalo was also in the league as well, was a legendary South African player.
Yeah, listen, if you go down the ranks, I think there were a couple of players playing here. I think a Jomo Sono back in those days played in that magical squad with, I think, Beckenbauer and Pele and what have you. So I mean,
the old Cosmos days.
There is a great history of South Africans playing in the professional leagues in America, you know. And like I said, it's always been a very intriguing league, a very interesting league, and now getting to learn the ins and outs. Because from an outsider looking in, you know, there's so many rules and the stipulations about drafting and combines and all these type of things.
Allocation money.
And TAM, and getting to learn all these.
Can you explain any of that to us? Because we have no idea what's going on.
It's very difficult. So, I mean, every day we're involved in it, and all I'm hearing is TAM and this and DPs and designated players and targeted allocated money or allocation money, or, you know. These are interesting terms for me, and I'm slowly getting to know how many numbers are allowed in each team. And so this has been a great education for me, as well as the workload from a daily basis. And obviously the crew that's working here behind the scenes, they put a huge amount into it. I mean, the hours that these guys put in, and you can see the success that they get out, because they look at everything, you know. And you're going through what goes on a daily basis, and making sure what makes the team tick. And I really respect that, and that's why I say it's a great learning experience for me. You know, I didn't want to come here just being a former Bundesliga player and have delegations or expectations, and because that's not my nature and that's not my character. You know, so I rather adapt and fit in and contribute where I can, rather than just arriving here and thinking, you know, that I'm something who I'm not. You know, I have a lot to learn, and I'm still very new in a coaching experience and career, but I wouldn't have thought to come here if I couldn't add value, you know. And obviously I think with small minor things between scouting from Germany and here, there's the language barrier and what have you. So, you know, that's one of the I think as well for me, which makes, you know, not valuable, but I think where I can contribute a lot, you know, in terms of the link between the two countries. And I think the link is already good, but just trying to polish it maybe every day more, just to see where we can get better, and, you know, trying to tick on the same lines. I mean, I think for Leipzig, Salzburg winning the league, Leipzig coming second, you know, I think we can learn a lot.
What are your impressions of the league so far? I know you've only been here about 2 months. A lot of travel, obviously, and probably more differences in terms of style of play than you'll see in other leagues. But in terms of the growth and development, has anything stood out to you, Bradley?
Yeah, I think every team has one or two guys who can make the day huge for their respective teams, and if we're not up to speed, we can get punished, you know. And I think the league is very even. You know, you look at all other leagues in the world, you look at Scotland, or you look at
very
Portugal,
top heavy,
you know, very top heavy. There's 4 or 5 good teams, and the rest are battling for relegation every year, you know. And you look here, and on any given day, and there was the first couple of weeks, the away teams here struggled immensely. You know, the first 3 or 4 weeks that I was here, I don't think there was a victory for the away teams, or maybe, you know, one away team out of 10 or 11 fixtures. So it was really, that for me was really interesting. So then you take into consideration, I mean, over this past weekend, I think you had snow in Salt Lake, right, you know, and then we had 90 degrees. So you have those vast temperatures, and just thinking about the traveling, I know New York City had quite a good game or 3 game stretch this last week. They had 3 different time zones, plus they went from snow to really warm. So I mean, just to manage all of that is quite something. And that's where your good sort of DP players, your squad, your depth, and everybody needs to chip in on a day to make it work. And this league is a lot more tricky than what I thought it was. You know, it isn't as straightforward. And again, now I've got to know my players, so now we're going into the weekly forecast of analyzing opposition, and which is also, you know, working. I've worked with video analysts before, but I just think the way the guys operate here is really, I think it's something that I've never seen. I mean, in Stuttgart or wherever I've played in Europe, and I think I've been out of there 7 years now, and I wouldn't have said it had progressed so much in 7 years, but even in 2010 and 2009, when I was still playing in Germany, the type of work that the analysts are putting in, you know, it's really, I think it's also inspiring, you know, because you can learn a lot. And that's why I say we're learning every day. I'm learning every day. And I think baby steps going forward makes us a bigger product and a better product. And I think we can only get stronger from here, because now learning the opposition is my biggest key now, because sometimes I will have a suggestion, and then Jesse or Chris will always come back and say, yes, but if we look at the game last season against us, they set up in a different way, they know how we play, So again, it's a mind shift, it's a change. Everyone wants to beat Red Bull. Everyone has a way of playing against Red Bull. So, just seeing how teams play on a weekly basis, how they're teaming up against us, it's really interesting.
You talked about the travel. I think you came here on a Thursday. By Friday, you were taking a flight down to Houston,
yeah.
right? I mean, that's, flying from South Africa, getting all your paperwork done, and then within, 24 hours, you're back on another flight.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I landed here and I went straight onto the training field. I won't forget that. I think.
What time did you land?
I think I landed at 7:40, and then getting from JFK to get here was a mission. So I got here as the guys were going to a video meeting, a quick introduction. And again, I went on the field and we started training. Jesse used me in a couple of things. And basically from there, like I said, hit the ground running. So it was important that I did a little bit of work behind the scenes. Then we flew to Houston, and by then I didn't know my name. I don't think I knew
and
where
it's
I was.
Degrees, and
my head was spinning, and
all that orange.
Just taking it all in. I think it was the first day or two was very overwhelming. Just in terms of how everything went out. And I think it's the best thing. Just throw you in the deep end and you must swim.
Right.
And I think that's the best thing. Too much pampering and spoon feeding. I'm not like that. I wasn't brought up like that. And a couple of guys were kind of interested to see how I got the visa application. I did it everything online. I'm very independent that way. I'll get up and do it. So I mean, and I think Jesse also said the other day, it feels like I've been here a lot longer than a month and a couple of days, So because
I don't know if that's a compliment, if it feels like you've been around that long.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I took it as basically, there's no red lights yet or any issues, So I've been
it's not that it's spending time with you feels longer than it actually is?
Yeah, so I took it as a compliment because, there's been nothing that has really needed nurturing or help or whatever. Obviously there's daily questions that I might need to ask or whatever, but I think in the general running we got up to speed very quickly, and it's a great bunch of guys. And one of the things I said to the team, and one of the things that motivated me to come out here, was when I spoke with Jesse, he spoke about a family, whether on or off the field. And the minute I've been speaking to the guys via Skype, and the minute I've been chatting to them or speaking to the players even, I said, this is the big decision why I came here, because a family environment, and obviously a family backing and a background that I've had and an upbringing, that's what I'm all about, is family, and I can see why this team has done well, and I can see why Jesse has done well, because he's got a very family approach, in terms of how he deals with players individually, collectively, how he takes us. His open door policy is something that's very unique, and we see it every day, and something that, even for me, from a German, sometimes I think I'm more German than South African, and looking how a German team is run, some things are really unique here, and it's very interesting. And I know a lot of the guys, when they come in here, guys speaking, and you think, should I be involved in this conversation or not, or should I? And it's just part of that whole open, nothing to hide, and which is really welcoming. You can just be yourself, and you can just carry on.
All right, so I'm going to flip the script now. You're going to ask me a couple questions. You've been in New Jersey now for 2 months? I'm a lifelong Jersey guy, pretty much. 30 plus years in the state. So you're just settling in. You got a house nearby, a few towns over.
Sure.
So what do you need to know about New Jersey? We're not like the Jersey Shore. We're not like the reality television show. So or Real Housewives of New Jersey. So what questions do you have? And if I can't answer them, we'll make sure that the people listening maybe can tweet at you, because you are on the Twitters.
Yeah, sure. I am on Twitter. I'm not so actively involved, but just wondering when I drive around and I see so many potholes, and I'm thinking, that is really African. It's pretty African to see so many potholes, and I'm thinking, why are there so many potholes?
Because of the winters, because of the snow and.
Now,
everything.
I've lived in Germany, and they don't have that problem.
That's German engineering. I'll tell you. I'm married to an engineer. My wife's an engineer. She works for a township nearby.
Okay.
And potholes is one of the biggest issues they face.
Yeah, unbelievable. What else? I opened up a bank account, and they said I could apply for a credit card, but the credit card got declined because I've got no credit history. So how do you get credit history without building up credit?
I think that's a question for Juan Romero.
So
that is team administrator.
That is
Juan
something
Romero.
that was, like I said, I'm independent. I'll go and do it myself. and they instructed me to do X, Y, and Z. I did X, Y, and Z, and it was declined because of no credit. So looking for a car, I think getting going in America is very tough.
It can be.
You know, I think that's been one of the biggest things. In Germany, you could just arrive and go. You have a contract and off you go.
So you're looking for a car.
So here, well, for the family when they arrive, you know.
Daniel Royer just got a Jeep Wrangler. I mean, it doesn't get more American than that. Take the
That is
top
very
down.
American.
It's very
Listen,
American.
there's no beach close by here. You know,
It's about an hour away.
That is something quite keen. I'm not much of a beach guy. You know, I'm more of a city guy. So I feel really at home here, I must say. Traffic is another big thing.
And Jersey drivers, New York, New Jersey drivers are their own species.
So another thing, which I believe is New York, unique to New Jersey, is turning right at a red light.
Yes.
So that was something.
Come to a complete stop first.
Yes, correct.
Right.
So that was something that was new to me. I was following our fitness guy, Tony, and we were stopped at a red light, and I didn't know my way, and he turned through the red, and I was like, Tony, what are you doing? I mean, yeah.
You're gonna get us in trouble.
Exactly. So now I know that little insider information. So that was really good to know.
New York, New Jersey is famous for its pizza. Now, I mean, you're a fit guy, so you can probably only do that once a week. But so we're famous for our pizza, certainly. There's a lot of history in this area as well. Have you been to New York yet, or?
I've had 1 or 2 days, just a brief walkthrough. I just where I was staying initially, I was down in Union, so I was living right by the Union station. So I just jump on the train and head out and jump off where I thought was the right place, and walked around and headed to Soho and Greenwich Village and what have you, all the way up to 33rd Street. So I've done a good walk around Manhattan, which was pretty cool. It wasn't bad. Just the people, I mean, I got up from the path one day. I know they say the path. I call it the path. And just walking into the masses was unbelievable. I mean, I've been to New York, I think it was 1995 or 96, as a under 23 national team player. We played down in Richmond, Virginia. We played, I remember Claudio Reyna and Alexi Lalas and all of them. We played those guys. And we spent a day or two on Broadway. But as a youngster, you don't really take it in and acknowledge it for what it really is.
It can be overwhelming.
But it is extremely impressive. You know, I wouldn't want to live there, so I feel very at home where I am. And if I want to go into the city, it's good, but I don't need it every day.
All right, so we're going to need to get fans to tweet at you car recommendations for your family and spots on the Jersey Shore, I guess, to
spots
check
on
out.
the Jersey Shore, yes. Listen, I know it's not unique to New Jersey, but Starbucks on every corner, a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner.
Is that new to you, Dunkin' Donuts?
These are Dunkin' Donuts, I think, has just arrived in South Africa. The franchise Starbucks has just arrived about a couple of months ago in South Africa. So there's all these new Cinnabon, all these unique sort of franchises.
Don't tell Jesse you're eating a Cinnabon, because he'll have you running laps out there.
No, he gets me on the field enough. Don't worry.
Sure.
He's thrown me in a couple of times, and I don't think I've ever trained this much in the last, I would say, five years. You know, just being thrown on and
might be signing you up pretty soon.
No, listen. I mean, it's been good, but you know how much the time. The days fly by and the time doesn't sleep, you know, and you can really feel it. It's crazy. As much as you still look okay, the pace of the guys has changed now, and I thought I was pretty explosive, but you know, just the dynamics and the pace, and you know, those days the press wasn't as big as the press as it is today in terms of, you know, pressing on the field. But yeah, it's really demanding the sort of requirements we need to put on our players every day. And you know, I considered myself a freely running player. That was one of my strengths.
But they run here.
Having a look at how they operate here, it's extremely tactical. It's extremely physical. It's extremely in terms of up and down, and it's relentless. You know, there's no real like a La Liga where the teams will dominate possession and wait for their play and their moment to go. That's been one of the biggest learning curves here, that the league is, and I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but it is definitely a compliment. I think it's a lot better than what I thought it was, you know, and I feel really good being here, and I think there's a lot of perspective. I've even had a couple of friends in Germany who've gone to the sort of agency business now, who I played with, and they were saying, guys, you know, the American market is really hot at the moment. You look at a player like Tyler Adams or what have you, there's a couple of good U20 guys at the World Cup. just the energy levels that they bring to the game, and that's what the modern game dictates, is high energy levels and willingness to run no matter what, willingness to fight no matter what. And I think part of that fits my character and my culture, and that's what I was all about, and that's why I feel at home here.
Running and fitness. That's why I was a goalkeeper in college. Well, Bradley, really appreciate the time. We said 15 minutes. We almost doubled that. So fantastic. Great news that your family's joining you soon, and glad you're settling in here in New Jersey.
No, thank you very much. It's been great, and it's hard to believe it's just a month and a bit in.
Thanks, Bradley.
Thanks.
Well, that was a lot of fun with Bradley Carnell, and his first ever interview now as an assistant coach with the Red Bulls. I gotta admit, I didn't know an awful lot about him, if anything, when he first came here to the organization, and just being able to see him the past few weeks, he's a guy who gravitates a lot towards the younger players. Now, I said something similar about Chris Armas a couple weeks ago, our first ever guest on the Red Bulls Insider podcast, and Bradley and Chris spend a lot of time with the Tyler Adams and Sean Davises and Alex Wheels, Derek Etienne's, Hassan Nadam's, just after practice, kicking the ball around, playing games with them, working on drills from time to time. And I think that's the advantage of having guys like this on the roster. You know, Bradley certainly brings an awful lot of experience. He played for the South African national team. He played it in the Bundesliga. He played in the domestic league back home in South Africa at the beginning and end of his career. And here he comes to MLS, perhaps with a fresh set of eyes. He has the understanding of kind of the mindset here of the New York Red Bulls in terms of the high press and some of the things tactically that are very strongly drawn upon from Red Bull Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg. So from that component, he offers an awful lot, but also maybe just being a guy who doesn't know a whole lot about the league, coming in, just being fresh and kind of taking it in like one of the players. You can really see after training, and I see this almost every day I'm at training, how the young players just do gravitate towards him, how they want to spend time with him, and he interacts with them kind of like an older brother, just a few years removed from his own playing days, and yet he's got the experience at the international level and certainly a very high level at the club level. And we heard him talking about playing in the different leagues and championships and so on. He's someone who, when he speaks, the players are willing to listen because he's been there and done that. And you talk about such an interesting life, growing up in apartheid South Africa, seeing how the sport of soccer, so often associated with being a working class sport in that country. He comes in and he plays for the national team during a time when it meant so much to be a South African, and to be a part of that national team was really the embodiment of the country moving forward. And being a part of just so many big moments for that country with the national team, well, that was goosebump stuff for me to listen to. So it was a great interview with Bradley Carnell. It's going to be interesting to see where this guy ends up in a few years. You see, he's got the charisma and the poise. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. If that's in MLS or back home in South Africa, or maybe with the South African national team even. I could see that. He's got that cachet. He's got that aura about him. So, well, we're cashing in now on episode number 3 of Red Bulls Insider Podcast on MSG Networks. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you real soon.